So this is my rotary table all set up, ready to go. So I've just got a whole bunch of closed jump rings around the table. And on this side here, this is my solder. So I'm just rotating it by going underneath. I could go on top as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly go around and flux everything before I start soldering. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of flux, warm it up, drop a bit of flux. And the reason I'm doing this all the way around first is because I don't want to have to heat my soldering pick up repeatedly. I'll just grab it here, give it a little spin, continue around. So I'm just going to flux all of them all the way around. Now, it did take me a little bit to set this up, but what normally happens, I'm just going to lift that guy up there. What normally happens when you're doing a job like this is you've got to close all these jump rings either way. And sometimes what happens is you can actually, have to reclose them if you're not soldering them right away. So doing a batch of them aside can sometimes be problematic. So you can see that I can very quickly just scoot around here, flux every joint. A couple of these I'm going to actually straighten, but I'll do that afterwards. As I said in previous videos, you do want these to be nice and lined up. There we go. Now this one here needs a little bit of tweaking. There we go. Now that I've done that, I can clean off my soldering pick. And on here I've already got my solder, so I'm just going to grab a little piece, heat up the solder, heat up the pick. I'll get the solder to ball up a little bit before I go into position. Set it right on the joint, heat it from underneath, done. I'm going to bring this a little closer so I can see exactly what I'm doing. So grab the solder, heat it from underneath, done. And then step and repeat, do that 400 or 500 times, and you'll have a chain. Or at least the beginnings of a chain. Heat the solder up, heat the jump ring, place the solder, and move on. So once I've done this batch, I can move along and go on to the next one. Apparently I never heated that one up. And you just keep going. Make sure your solder is not too large. Or too small, you just have to get exactly the right amount on there. And you just keep going around like this. Just going to rotate it. And I will move my soldering. So the piece that I have my solder on, is titanium. So I don't have to worry about heating it up. I also don't have to worry about my solder sticking. So the soldering, soldering all this number of jump rings is really why this chain is expensive. This is pretty labor intensive to get all of this done. But, it's a lovely chain when it's done. Soldering is pretty quick. Now I'm using my micro torch, but you can do this with a normal sized torch as well. You just have to be slightly more careful. I'm probably going to run out of solder here, but And that's it. You just keep going around in circles here. Once these are done, by the time I get to the other end, and I've soldered all of these, the first ones will already be cool. So again, I'll just keep this tray with me and heat the solder, make it into a little ball, position it, step and repeat. The reason I like my, I don't do these sort of things on a soldering block. Some people will solder these on a soldering block and put the solder underneath it and draw it forward. It's basically the same thing. I just prefer this because it lets me make sure that I have a good joint. I will be testing each one of these solder joints during the chain making process at any rate. So a few more to go, and I'm just going to use up the solder I've already cut here. Actually, looks like I've used it up, so I'll just cut some more solder and I'll just keep going. And again, by the time I get over to these ones over here that I've already started, they'll be plenty cool, and then I'll set up another batch and do it again. Thanks for watching. Remember, subscribe, like, and share. I don't know why, to be honest with you, but I guess it'll help at some point in my life. Thanks, guys.